This is episode 72 of the Why Not Me podcast, The Action of Feeling. I'm your host, Danita Bremer. I'm a wife, mom, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a life coach. And in this podcast, we talk about how to overcome our inner obstacles to endure this life well. Okay, you guys, I have had a crazy couple of days, and I just wanted to mention this to you because I want you to know that I am very human. So it started yesterday morning. I was supposed to coach in somebody else's program and talk about trauma and help her clients process through some emotion. But when I went to get on the call at 7 o'clock in the morning, due to time zone differences, I couldn't get on the call. And so it threw my whole day off yesterday. And then last night, I have a senior in high school who's approaching graduation. She's got a lot of projects going on. And she has this senior capstone project, which is to paint a mural. And she's doing it on canvas, and then they're going to hang it in the school. But she had to finish it last night. And also this morning, I had to take my son to school an hour early for a jazz band practice. So I didn't get very much sleep or very good sleep. I wear a fitness tracker, and it tells me what kind of sleep I got. And I'm usually pretty good at about getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, like the actual length of sleep. But last night, I actually haven't even looked at it, but my sleep was so broken. I couldn't fall asleep until after midnight. And then I woke up at 4. I heard my daughter, she was still downstairs painting her mural. And I don't know, she was putting some stuff away or something. I could hear her walking around, kind of that mom radar of there's somebody in my house moving around. And I looked at the clock, it was 4 a.m. And then I couldn't get back to sleep. I eventually did fall back asleep, but my alarm went off at 6:30, and I just felt so exhausted. So that when I went to take my son to school, I came home and then I just went back to sleep, and I was dead to the world for about 2 hours. So I'm feeling a little bit kind of groggy and sluggish today, but it is podcast recording day. So here we are. I just wanted to encourage you to please leave a review and let me know what I can do better, what you love, what you hate, what your favorite takeaway is. I would love to know. I'm always trying to improve. And I really, really love knowing what things really touch people and affect people. It's always stuff that I think is small or is not what I expect. I also have a little announcement because of this class that I put together for yesterday, and then I wasn't able to give it. Hopefully we can reschedule that. I decided to offer it to you all as a free workshop. So I set a day and a time, May 20th, 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And you can go to the link in the show notes, or you can go to danitabremer.com/links, and the link is there. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what trauma is, which actually isn't a simple thing. There's not a lot of agreement in the industry of what exactly is trauma. How do we define it? I do have an episode on that, but we're going to talk more about that. And we're going to talk about how it shows up in your everyday life that could be a trauma response that you don't even realize could be a trauma response. And then we're going to talk about what to do about it. So today I wanted to talk about the action of feeling. And the reason is because sometimes when I get to the end of a session with a client, my client will ask, okay, I think I know what you're saying. I understand it logically, but what do I do now? And whenever I hear that, it's a huge red flag that the client actually needs to feel more. Now, not just my clients, but myself too. I will find myself saying, okay, what should I do? What do I do? What do I do about this? How do I fix it? Right? Those kinds of things. And I've just learned that when I'm asking that question, The most likely next action. Hold on. What's going on? The most likely next action is to feel. Okay. So normally we don't think of feeling as an action, right? And I want to talk a little bit about this. And first of all, I want to say that feeling is a very simple thing, but it's not necessarily an easy thing for most of us or for many of us. And it's because of how our culture thinks about feeling or the messages we receive about feeling. Our culture is very focused on doing and productivity. So when we feel as an action, when we get very intentional about feeling our emotions, there's nothing to show for it on the outside. And so we dismiss it. We think like it's not worth it, it doesn't have value, those kinds of things. And also because so many of us, and I think this is also a product of our culture, we are so disconnected from our bodies that we don't even really know how to do this work. So I want to address it as a very, very starter step on this episode. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want you to I want to plant some seeds in your mind about this. So don't feel like you have to start doing it right away, but just sort of like turn it over in your mind, like feeling as an action, an intentional action. And the last thing is that sometimes it might be because we are so much in a nervous system response. And honestly, like I know that that's very broad because anything we do or not do is a nervous system response. Our nervous system is like the core of how we navigate our environment, right? When I say nervous system response, I'm talking about that fight or flight, that like defensive, perceived danger, like I have to do something, like I have to get away or I have to fight or I have to freeze, something like that. That kind of response, right? That parasympathetic response. Sometimes some of us, like myself, we are so used to being in that parasympathetic response that we don't even know we're in it. And so it doesn't feel safe. It feels foreign. It feels weird, different to slow down and actually feel our feelings. Right. And when we slow down and we do some of the things that I'm going to talk about, it almost feels like a danger to our bodies because we're not used to it. And because it requires us to assume that we're safe in order to do it. It's part of actually using our bodies to increase that sense of safety within us. Okay. So, how do we turn feeling into an action so that we can get more on board with the doing of feeling, right? So, I think we actually often know what the emotion is. Anger, we know when we're angry. We know when we're frustrated. We know when we feel sad. We often know when we feel resentment. We know when we feel exhausted. We can label the feeling pretty well, oftentimes, but that's as far as it goes. We don't necessarily know how to feel it. And if you get one thing from this podcast episode, I hope it is this. Here's a question to ask yourself. How do I know I'm feeling angry? How do I know I'm feeling sad? How do I know I'm feeling exhausted? Pick your emotion, whatever it is you're feeling. What are you feeling right now? How do you know you are feeling it? This question will drop you into the sensation level of your emotions. This takes you to what's called your felt sense. So it's like that in your body feeling of your emotion. But when we talk about our emotions and we label them, anger, sadness, whatever it is, that is in our minds, right? That's the label for it. That's the language around it. And it's very mind logic based. What I want you to do as a practice is to drop into your body. And this is not something that we're taught. It's not something that is rewarded in our culture. It's something that is thought of as sort of like out there and woo woo and weird and all of that, right? But it is not. It is the key to everything, my friends. This practice of describing or knowing how you feel on a sensation level is called interoception. So that's the kind of clinical word we give to this practice of increasing your awareness of how you feel in your body. How do you know you feel? And this is one thing I just want to kind of insert here is when you get a splinter or a hangnail or something like that, how do you know? What's the first clue? Right? It's like this little prick of pain. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, there's something there. This is the same thing we're doing, except with our emotions. There's not like a physical piece of wood or something under our skin, but it's still recognizing the sensations that point us toward, oh, there's something there, right? When we're feeling angry, it's usually something about a perceived injustice, an unfairness in the world. When we're feeling sad, it's usually going to point us toward a sense of loss, right? And each emotion has kind of a sentence or a meaning that goes with it. That again is in our heads, which is not bad. Like we're getting very good at that kind of awareness. What I want us to also get good at is the awareness of what does it feel like in my own body. Now, there are so many amazing reasons to get good at this. I'm just going to give you one. I read recently, doing research for this episode, that there are studies that show a relationship between depression and being unpracticed at interoception. I'm like, okay, well, that's good enough reason for me to get good at this. Now, there are lots of other amazing reasons to be good at this, but that's just one. I just wanted to give you one compelling reason. Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, we don't feel because it's not safe to feel, or at least that's our perception. Our bodies say it's not safe to feel this. Get me away, get me away. In fact, that is often the case. I don't know. I don't want to say like it is always the case because that feels very drastic, but there's something in our bodies, like our bodies don't like the uncomfortable emotions. They want to get away. So this is when we emotionally eat, right? I totally did that yesterday. I couldn't get on this call that I was supposed to head up. I felt really disappointed. I was really bummed about it. I had some Reese's peanut butter cups in the freezer and I went and grabbed them. And I was just like, I know I'm buffering and I know that I'm eating this because I feel really terrible right now, but I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. So sometimes I will allow that. I'll be like, as long as I'm doing it with awareness, as long as I'm not like numb to it and completely oblivious about the reason why, then I totally give myself a green light on those. And the antidote here, the sort of how to get out of this is to bring yourself back to your body, bring yourself back to the present moment. So these practices that I'm going to talk about are all practices that bring us back to our bodies, back to the present moment. Our brains are going to want to take us to the past and ruminate about, oh, I should have done this, or I should have blah, blah, blah. I did that as well. I was like, I should have tested that link before 2 minutes before the call, right? I have learned now from here on out, if I ever am going to coach in somebody else's program, I'm either going to test their link or I'm going to give them my link, right? Because I didn't have a way of like letting the people on the call know. It was just this big thing. So this is the key to interoception, to practicing awareness over your felt sense, is anything that gets you back in the present moment or into your body. So the first thing that I love is grounding exercises. Again, I think almost all of these, I think grounding is kind of a bigger umbrella. And some of these things that I'm going to mention are maybe smaller umbrellas within the grounding umbrella. But I love just the practice of feel your feet on the floor. So right now, my feet are inside socks, inside slippers, because I'm just always cold inside my house, even though it's fairly nice outside. And I just I wiggle my toes around and I feel the feeling of my feet on the floor, in my slippers, in my socks. What does that feel like? Right? I also love going out into nature. And I feel very fortunate that where I live on a little cul-de-sac. And at the end of our cul-de-sac is a little trailhead to a green belt. And I could live out there. I love being out in nature. And I think the thing that I love about it is that it brings me to the present. It makes me feel so much gratitude. And I don't know, like I just love looking at the sky and the clouds and feeling the sun on me and hearing the birds and watching the flowers or the leaves rustling, whatever it is. It just makes me focused on the present. And I'm getting better, but historically I haven't been that great at it. I've either lived in the past with the rumination of I should have, could have, would have, or in the future of like, oh my gosh, what if this, what if that? I've gotten so much better at it, but I'm still practicing anything that brings me to the present, brings me into my body. When I go outside, I don't always go, well, how does this feel to be walking today? Right? Sometimes I do, but not always. Okay, the second thing I'm going to describe is what I call orienting. Was taught to me by my coach, and it's basically when you sit down or if you're outside wherever you are, you slowly look around. Like I'm here in my office, I just turn my head around slowly. I let my gaze fall on whatever. Because here's the thing, when we're in a fight or flight response, our necks are very rigid, our eyes are very stuck straight ahead of us. It's like, this is what I always think of when I think of the opposite of orienting. It's like the little bunny rabbits that we see, 20, 30 yards in front of us, and they don't see us yet. But you can tell the moment that they see you approaching, they kind of freeze. Right? And they're like stiff. Orienting is the opposite of that. Orienting tells us by using your body to move slowly and look around, it sends a signal that you are safe. Because when you are not safe, you don't slowly look around your environment. So you can use this as a way to send a signal to your brain. We're actually very safe. The other thing I'm just going to add here is when I do orienting, I look for something that feels pleasant to look at. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but each day it's something different. It could be a color, it could be a fabric, it could be a pattern, it could be whatever. Like sometimes I just use my tissue box. If you're on YouTube, you can see me putting this up. But like the color combinations, and it's this sort of like artistic flowery thing. And I'm just like, I love those colors, right? And then when I find something that feels pleasant to look at, then I turn my attention into my body and I think about, where is the pleasant? How do I know it feels pleasant? Right? Okay, the third thing is movement. I recently heard Bessel van der Kolk. He's the author of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. It's a landmark trauma manual, basically. Highly recommend it. I heard him on an interview, and he said that he believes the antidote to trauma, to processing through our trauma, is a movement that makes us in our bodies more. And his favorite is yoga. So I'm currently in the process of establishing a daily yoga habit. And you guys, don't let that make you think that I'm some amazing person, because I usually just do 3 cat cows. It's like 30 seconds or a minute of cat cows stretching. Occasionally I'll do more than that. But I would love to get to the point where I do 20, 30, an hour of yoga a day, because I have learned the power of yoga. Again, it makes us slow down. It makes us feel, it makes us touch into our bodies. But if you're not ready for yoga yet, I highly, highly recommend walking. Now, any movement practice can fit this bill. Bessel van der Kolk also mentioned Qigong. So that's it's like an Asian culture practice that you move very slowly. The thing is that it's like a slow movement that gets us back into our bodies, right? I have been walking every day, or nearly every day, for about 3 years. Actually, maybe it's been 3.5 years now. And the whole purpose when I started, which I just told you about, how I have this lovely green belt right outside my door. I've been here in this house for 16 years, and I have not taken advantage of the green belt the way I have in the last 3 years. Now, COVID was part of that, of we couldn't go places, and so we would just go for walks. But even before COVID, the fall before COVID, I came home from a mastermind event through the Life Coach School, and I committed myself to walking every day with the intention of feeling my emotions, specifically feeling my resistance. But that's a different episode. So if yoga or Qigong or something like that is not for you right now, then can you take a 5 or 10-minute walk every day, with the intention, not the intention of exercise or fitness, but with the intention of, how do I feel in my body when I walk? Even some meditations, there is such a thing as a walking meditation, right? Where you're very, very mindful of every step you take and every movement you make. That is the goal here, to slow down and to touch into the sensations happening in your body, right? So there's movement. So we've talked about grounding, anything that connects us to the present moment or to our bodies. We've talked about orienting, sends a signal that we're safe in our environment. And then we talked about movement, specifically walking or yoga. Those are my 2 most recommended practices. I have one more, actually I have 2 more, but one more that is under this umbrella of grounding, and that is breathing. I just recently have really come to understand the power of breath work and intentional breathing. It literally moves us. So if you can't get outside for that walk, you can intentionally sit up tall, have a nice posture. You can breathe in and fill your chest cavity, like let it expand. And how does it feel as your breath goes in and out, right? There's a whole discipline, a whole industry of breath work. There are practitioners who just help you focus on your breath work. And there's all different kinds of patterns and breathing that can help you, right? There, it's like very healing. Breath, it makes me think of the scriptures about the spirit, right? God blew the spirit into Adam, the breath of life, right? There is something about breathing, and especially like the kind of breathing that we would do like in a meditation where it's very again, intentional, slow, deep breathing, right? That is another thing that can connect you to your body, connect you to the present moment. So, all of these things are like mindfulness practices, right? Anything that slows us down and uses our senses. The other thing I just wanted to mention really quickly is that when we don't feel safe to feel, right? Maybe something has triggered us and we're just like in that, we can tell we're like in that fixed, like my eyes are ahead. I feel like I need either need to get away or I need to fight or I need to shut down. What this looks like for most of my clients who are moms is I just have to get away to my room. I need to go to my room. I need to shut the door and I need to read a book or do something that's away from my children. That's like a freeze response, right? You might also have that fight response, like wanting to argue, feeling frustrated, feeling justified. You might have a flight response of like, I have to leave. Like, I just have to leave. And, it can get a little complicated, freeze and flight. But if you always feel like you're in a rush, that could be a flight response. So sometimes in the moment, you're not going to be able to like wiggle your toes in your slippers or slowly look around the room or I need to go for a walk. I don't know, maybe you can, but you might not be able to. And in those cases, I would just really encourage you to reach out and ask for support. Ask for support from your spouse, from a friend, from your kids, from whoever it is that you feel safe with, and say, hey, I really need this now. Like, call a neighbor and say, I am hitting my limit. Will you come over? Can I drop my kids off to you for about 15 minutes? I just need a little bit of space, right? You can ask your partner, like, can you give me a hug? Can you hold me tight? Can you put your hands on me in this way that feels very supportive and calming? Now, there's some trial and error here. What does feel supportive and calming to you in your body? Again, this is going to require you to feel into your body, to increase your interoception, to tap into that felt sense. So, I think that I'm going to leave it at that because speaking from experience, this is a lot already. So I'm going to keep this episode short and sweet, although I see it's not really all that short or sweet. But I just encourage you to start thinking about feeling as an action, right? Again, our cultures tell us we have to do, go, 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 create results all the time. And I just wonder if that pendulum has swung too far and if the going and the doing is now actually hurting us in some ways. And if we need to come back to center and feel as much as we do, and there's nothing wrong with doing. I love action. I love taking action, and it is absolutely necessary to get us the results we need. I'm not going to remember the conference talk, the name or the person, but I think it was from the women's session of last conference. Somebody said, if you want to feel something, you have to be willing to do something, right? So the action is definitely very good and important. But I'm talking about when we have a hyper focus on the action, when we're not thinking about, well, what am I thinking about this or how am I feeling about this? And specifically the feeling part, because as a mindset coach, I come from a world where, we've been so focused on the doing and now we're almost over focusing on the thinking and what do I think about this? And that also has its place. But I feel like we are overlooking the feeling work, which is just so important. And I think it's the thing that A few episodes ago, I talked about learning by experience. The feeling is what gives us the experience. It's what changes us, really, which is why I think it's so important. All right, don't forget to sign up for my upcoming workshop called Understanding Trauma. I'm going to make trauma really simple. We're going to go more in depth of more practices that you can do and more about these ones that I listed here in this episode. With trauma, it's all about increasing your felt sense of safety in your body. Go to danitabremmer.com/links to sign up. There will be teaching and Q&A and coaching for anyone who wants to try out this action of feeling with some guided help. That's enough for now, and so are you. If this episode made you think about yourself or others or God in a new way, would you please give it a rating and a review and tell me your favorite takeaway? And if you're ready to overcome your inner obstacles and endure this life better, go to danitabremmer.com and sign up for a free session, or danitabremmer.com/links and sign up for my workshop. Until next time, go be you and follow the Spirit.